If you were blindfolded, thrown into a van, and then dropped off in an unknown, undisclosed location, and you were then simply left there, what would you do? Where would you go? And where would you end up? Like a lot of people who love this game, I initially played it well over 15 years ago. One part that really left an impression on me was the character of Darko, the man who betrayed Nico and his friends during the war, leading to the demise of many of his childhood friends. It's strongly suggested throughout the game that this is the real reason Nico is in Liberty City, to track him down and exact revenge. In some ways, this feels like the end of Nico's story, the finale. At least before all that other stuff happens. When Nico calls Roman to tell him Darko is being flown into the country, he says, "This is almost over, I'm going to finish it." And when arriving at the airport before encountering Darko, Nico again makes it clear that this was his goal all along, by saying, "This is it, this is where it all ends." I recently had the chance to replay GTA 4, and again this part of the game struck me as a big highlight. I made the most out of it, as you can see. I let Darko go initially, and after realizing he was running away, I got the idea to just follow him, to see what might happen. I'm going to save everyone a lot of time now and say there's no huge Easter egg, no secret cutscene, or hidden dialogue that plays. So that's it. Feel free to stop watching now. Really, go ahead. You're free to leave. I won't judge you. Alright, it's safe. Now with only the most curious people still watching, we can really get into it. According to the GTA wiki page, if you follow Darko, he simply runs around the airport forever and never stops. Whilst that seems like it would be the case, it's actually a bit more complex than that. Before I discuss the different possibilities, I'll give you an overview of what happened the first time I tried to do this. When I first followed Darko, it initially seemed he would just endlessly run around the airport, but I quickly realized that actually he just gets spooked if you follow him too closely. And as a result, he turns around or changes direction. Creating some distance, ideally the length of 2 cars, he doesn't get spooked quite as easily and instead runs down what looks like a predetermined path. Not only that, but his animations seem to suggest that he knew Nico was following him, as he turns his head towards whichever side of him you're on. I thought this was an interesting detail, as it seems the developers at least explored the possibility that you'd follow him. I kept my distance somewhat and just let him run. After a while of him running through the airport, he eventually started to make his way out of the airport and towards the coastline. And this is where it got interesting. He wasn't running around in circles, and he made it out of the airport. And he just kept running. In the airport cutscene, it's intimated that Darko is a drug addict, with Nico's comment about him being a junkie. Judging by Darko's relentless stamina alone, I'd wager that he's at least a crackhead. It was a little tricky to keep following him with the rocky and slopey terrain. Darko is quite good at making sudden diversions and dipping around trees or bushes. It helps that he also screams. A lot. In a twisted way, it reminds me of the Lost Woods in Zelda Ocarina of Time, where if you lose Darko, instead of music, you can judge where he is based on the loudness of his screams. If he gets too far away, he seemingly stops screaming, or you're at least too far away to hear it. He eventually made it out onto the actual street. At this point, I thought that maybe this would be some kind of breakthrough, that I would discover something that somehow everyone else had missed. I knew it wasn't likely, but I still kept following him in any case. He dipped around some cars and got spooked, suddenly changing course. He seemed to show some intelligence as he headed towards the more difficult rocky terrain again, as if he knew his chances of escape would be better this way. It was honestly hard to keep track of him here. I knew that if I got too close, he would change course, but if I kept too much distance, I could easily lose him. He then took a path where a lot of pedestrians were, and again made a run for the more obscure wooded area. Darko was again difficult to catch as he used the bushes and trees as cover, making his way through the park. After finding his way back to the street, he again changed his direction whilst running through a small crowd of pedestrians, maybe hoping that I would once again lose track of him. I approached slowly, letting him turn the corner and think it was safe. Then this happened. Darko stopped running. This was really interesting. He chose to stop at a construction site near a group of workers. Is this Darko's fate? He just waits around a construction site until he sees a spare hard hat and high-vis jacket and decides to take up construction work and lay low? Does he stop here because he knows Nico wouldn't want to incriminate himself by killing him in a populated area? I wasn't sure what to do here. I sort of waited for something to happen. I tried to push Darko to see if it would trigger him to start running again, which it didn't. I then decided to drive away and wait a little while. When I came back, the construction workers had all dissipated and Darko was still there, just standing, but this time with no witnesses. The fact that Darko actually does stop was a surprise. I haven't read anything past the GTA Wiki article I showed earlier, but I don't think anyone else has acknowledged this fact online. Now, I could have just left it there. I had already proved that Darko does run outside the airport and that he does indeed stop. But I started to think that maybe there might be some significance to this construction site. I wondered if whether I followed Darko again, he would still end up here. After all, this is where he stopped. So, I again followed him. This time, Darko followed almost exactly the same path out of the airport, to the coastline area, through the terrain and towards the street. I was sure that this must be the path he takes, and that the outcome would be the same as the first time. But things got a little complicated as Darko then decided to head through an underpass, changed direction a few times, then got hit by a car. After coming out of the underpass, it was obvious he was now on a different path than before, so once more I stalked him. At some point he saw a bit of an alleyway and headed down, perhaps thinking I couldn't fit the car down there and he'd lose me that way, which was never going to happen. He then got hit by another car, but got back up. Then, after running a bit more, he got run over by yet another car. The drivers are pretty wise and don't really want to get involved. They get out of the car and look perplexed before going on with the rest of their day. And before I knew it, Darko had found a new spot. He stopped here next to a highway. This random area near the highway and some apartments is pretty fitting for him actually, since there seemed to be other people down on their luck also hanging around. I went away shortly, came back, and again he was just standing there in the same spot. I decided to try something different this time, and I drove Roman back to Brucey's place to trigger the end of the mission. Afterwards, I returned to this exact spot. I'm not sure what I was expecting to happen. Maybe I thought Darko would still be there. Spoiler alert, he disappeared. At this point, I was running out of ideas. Maybe the car was the problem. It's too loud and you have to get too close, so Darko inevitably gets scared and changes direction. What if I followed him from much farther away, allowing him to just go wherever he's trying to go without me getting in the way and screwing up the trajectory? I followed him yet again, this time trying to stay on foot as much as possible. This way I'd at least be quieter. He followed a pretty similar path to the last two times, but things got messy as it seemed I chased him into some fairly heavy traffic. Predictably, he got hit a fair few times, and even seemed to try and escape a couple of times by catching a ride from one of the cars. Then, he stopped here next to a road not too far from the airport. Instead of killing him or restarting the mission, I got the idea to set the time-lapse function on through Liberty's legacy trainer. I guessed that perhaps something could happen if enough in-game time elapsed. But alas, nothing seemed to happen. I never noticed this before, but it seems that when you're on a mission, the day of the week is frozen and the day just repeats itself after 24 hours. I was already feeling like I was stuck in Groundhog Day, without it literally being the case. Eventually, I just killed Darko. Then I used the trainer to make him spawn again, before killing him again for good measure. I was about to call it a day at this stage, but I knew that I was still probably interfering with whatever direction Darko was going, because I kept getting too close. So I tried again, but this time tried to stay as far away as possible, watching him from afar through the sniper scope. This didn't go well, and I simply lost him eventually. Helicopters seemed like a great option at first, but made it very hard to keep track of him, and maybe they're too loud and he would still detect me. I almost lost him a few times as he went under bridges or through buildings. I decided it wasn't worth the effort, so I came back down and chased him on foot in the airport. He ended up stopping in this car park area near the airport. I got the bright idea to call the police, purely for the hell of it at this point. Like, what would the police do if they saw Darko with his hands tied behind his back? Anyway, the police didn't come, so I took it out on Darko again. I tried the helicopter thing a second time, but it was just too hard to keep track of him. I lost him a few times, only to see him pop out from nowhere again, frantically running away. Ultimately, he escaped, never to be seen again. I came down to the ground and looked around for him where he was last seen. For a split second, I thought I saw Darko running, but it was just a group of joggers. I had basically given up at this point. After accidentally killing Darko a couple of times, I thought about trying to see what would happen if I let him get hit by other cars. This took some effort, and Darko tried to use the opportunity to make a daring escape by getting a taxi ride. He got hit by a police car that just went back on its merry way, caused a pileup, stopped for a breather here and there. He can take quite a few of these hits, to be fair, but after enough hit and runs, he was finally put out of his misery. If he dies this way, it still triggers a change in Nico's dialogue indicating that you chose to kill him.
You piece of shit! That was for everyone! That was for me!
Now, perhaps chasing him with a knife into oncoming traffic can be argued to be intentionally doing something which you reasonably know might lead to his death, aka second or third degree murder. But apparently, some players doing the mission normally have been driving Roman to Bruce's place after freeing Darko. Then, suddenly, Nico's dialogue will change as if you just shot Darko 12 times. This never happened to me, but it seems like something that could happen if Darko makes his way towards cars or runs into some bad luck with the airplane. I think it's pretty funny since Nico doesn't even witness it, yet somehow knows about it. Maybe him and the airplane guy, or the taxi guy, are in cahoots. There was this one weird moment where I was chasing Darko on a bike with Nico and Roman wearing helmets. He gets hit by a limo, stands back up, and just sort of stares at us for a little bit too long, as if he doesn't quite recognize who he's looking at. He did end up running away again, probably recognizing the clothes we were wearing. I realized a few things at this point. He runs away, and he continues to run away from you based on where you are around him. He eventually gasses out and stops. But where he stops seems to have no actual significance. It's just where he ends up. It's quite easy for him to get killed accidentally. And no matter how he dies, the game acts like you executed him. Even when you obviously didn't do anything intentionally, and you maybe just hit him lightly with the car totally by accident.
You piece of shit!
Since I knew that I could kind of control the direction Darko runs in by carefully scaring him until he's going where I want, I decided to see what would happen if I forced him into the sea. I took a car and chased him out of the airport towards the coastline. And whilst it was pretty straightforward to get him there, it seemed like he wasn't too fond of the idea of getting into the water. I basically had to corral him, like I was herding sheep or something. He kept veering off and away from the water, so I adjusted the position of the car to counteract it. He ran back and forth quite a bit, before finally stopping. Now that I had him where I wanted, it was either a sink or swim for Darko. I managed to push him into the water, and in a very magical way, his hands broke free and he swam, very quickly, back to land and just stood there. You've probably already noticed that while Darko's hands are tied, he breaks free briefly whenever he gets hit by a car, kicked in various places, or needs to swim. Then after, he kindly ties his hands back together again. A real gentleman. Going back to the sea, I did another time lapse, contemplated all my life choices, then let Darko swim with the fishes. I wanted to exhaust some more possibilities. I chased him again, but now instead of endlessly following him, I made the difficult decision to, retire Roman. Then I went into the free camera and saw Darko calmly, casually walking away from the scene. I caught up with him to see if he would start running, and he didn't. He was totally indifferent to Nico's presence. I even got the phone call which triggers the mission to start again, whilst also walking with Darko. In any case, I sent Darko to Valhalla, picked up Roman, came back to the airport, let Darko go free, again regrettably got Roman out of the way, then I followed Darko again just with the camera. After casually walking for a while and going through some boxes, just like that, he was gone. I initially thought that Darko might have his own predetermined path or route somewhere, and it's the player chasing or stalking him that causes him to veer off into the sea, oncoming traffic, or wherever else he goes. My previous attempts to follow him seemed to be influenced by Nico's presence, so my last idea was to test this out with the photo mode in Liberty's Legacy Trainer. I went into photo mode and simply followed him without having to use Nico to do the chasing. This way, I wouldn't spook him or force him into some other direction. As shown here, he really does just frantically run back and forth in the airport if left alone. I suppose this is a development decision to make it less likely for him to get struck and killed by some random vehicle, and to ensure the player won't randomly encounter him on the drive back. As mentioned earlier, the GTA Wiki claims he simply runs in circles around the airport forever and doesn't lose stamina if followed, but this isn't actually the case. He runs around the airport if left alone, but can go in any number of directions if you follow him without getting too close. He also does eventually stop, perhaps due to him being programmed with a set amount of time running that might safely cover the mission's length. In any case, if you keep following him and he doesn't meet his end in some tragic road incident, he does in fact give up and gas out. And then what? Well, nothing, aside from eternal meditation and the most awkward staring contest possible. There seems to be no real logic in where Darko ends up. It's just a function of the AI he's programmed with. Run away from the direction of Nico within a certain range, change direction if Nico is too close, rinse and repeat, then finally stop after some predetermined amount of time. The way the game builds up Darko as the one pivotal figure in Nico's arc, the one who ruined him, the one he's really in Liberty City for. The way that Darko's character model resembles Nico more so than any other character, but in this really grotesque, twisted way. Even the name, Darko Brevic, sounds really close to Nico Bellic. It's not even subtle. Darko is to Nico what Shadow is to Sonic, what Venom is to Spider-Man, what Wario is to Mario. You get the idea. With all of this, I guess I wanted or expected there's something to be more significant that happens if you follow him. But at the end of the day, maybe just like Nico, we're supposed to just forget him and move on. Darko's presence in the game sort of serves this allegorical or metaphorical purpose. He's a ghost from Nico's past, and more so than anything, he's a reflection of Nico's worst possible traits. Whether you choose to spare him or not, he must be left in the past, as that's where he belongs. I think that's the only real choice for Nico, to move on. There can be no forgiving or forgetting Darko's betrayal, and no closure comes from getting revenge. All that happens is Nico is made a bigger hypocrite for killing him, as by this point in the game, it's very clear that Nico himself is no saint. And we know from the cutscene dialogue that Darko also suffered a betrayal during the war, so it's not as black and white as we first believed. For anyone that made it this far, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. This is one of those questions which I'm not sure if Rockstar ever really considered very much. Maybe they never imagined someone would be quite sad enough to follow Darko this far or this many times. And yet, I still had quite a bit of fun doing this. The fact that we're still finding new things about this game so many years later is a testament to the sheer creative genius behind it. Au revoir.
Maybe this is good for you. Maybe now that you know that revenge is not what you are after, you can look for fulfillment in other places. Maybe. I don't know.